everybody. This is Dimensions of the Supernatural. I am Maureen Grudzinski, otherwise known as Lil Witchy. I'm here with my great co-host, Anthony Simonelli, also known as...
Hey, Mr. Fuhgeddaboudit, how you doing tonight?
How is everyone? We are going to get to it in just a moment. We have a fantastic guest. I think a lot of you are going to be extremely excited. Hi, everyone. Hi, Ron. So our guest tonight is a little bit different. It's not really on the total paranormal spectrum. Hi, Jenny. We have Jeff Mudgett. He is known as the great-great-grandson of H.H. Holmes. He is known as the first serial killer of the United States. And some say and have a theory that he may have also been known as Jack the Ripper. We have a killer of a show for you tonight. So without further ado, we will bring in Jeff Mudgett.
Hello, Maureen. Hello, Anthony. I loved your intro. That was very good.
Thank you so much. I've been practicing for about a year. Hi, everyone. So this is Jeff. Jeff, you were an attorney. Is that correct?
Practice law in California, yeah.
Okay. So you had a little bit of a background on getting some information together for cases. So you took that and you used that to find further information about your ancestor, who you were pretty shocked to find out about. And it was about how many years ago?
Oh, at least 15 years now. Maybe more, maybe 20. Yeah.
And was it through a DNA test? Is that what?
No, I tell you what.
Years ago.
When I wrote my book, Bloodstains, I described how I came about learning who I was one night at dinner with my grandmother and the family. And my grandmother had been obsessed with our roots. And she had... and my cousin and her had spent a lot of time working on their theory that our ancestor had been Robert E. Lee of Civil War fame, and they'd even hired a professional group to track it down for them.
Wow.
Well, lo and behold, it came back different than Robert E. Lee. It came back this terrible, evil thing, H.H. Holmes, who was Herman Webster Mudgett to the family. And there at dinner one night, we were eating her chicken dumplings, famous food, and
was the best.
And then waiting for apple pie later, and she sat us all down and told us that she'd been shocked to find out that instead of Civil War, we had come to find out that it was the Devil in the White City. The famous title of the famous book by Eric Larson. And she proceeded to tell the family what they described to her and how maybe she should take up a different hobby rather than roots.
There's always some dark history there as well.
But I'll never forget that night watching my grandfather, who would have, for your viewers' sake, would have been the killer's grandson. But he'd never brought him up. He'd never mentioned the man to the family. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he'd never told my grandmother. But I was watching him very carefully, watching his face slowly meld into the background. And then finally, in the middle of her lecture on our roots, I'll never forget, and I tried to describe it in the book, he stood up, slammed his chair back against the wall, slammed his hands down on the table, and said, name will never be mentioned in this house ever again, and stormed out the room. So that's how I found out.
Oh,
I think we all have that person. Like when you said Robert E. Lee, my family on my mother's side were related to Ulysses S. Grant. And she said, we'll never tell anyone. And I said, why? That's a great person. She said he was a drunk.
Oh. No.
So you all, I mean, everybody has that one person that you kind of hide for some reason or another, whether it be a small thing or a big thing. And this is very interesting. You know, it's something that you can either hide or you can use it to, you know, tell people about so that it doesn't happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, being a drunk is one thing. Being the operator of the murder castle is another.
Right.
I think, you know.
Right.
I did my genealogy, and I'm Sicilian, and I didn't come across anything like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So,
No, but you never know what you're going to come.
Wow.
And everyone hides for a different reason. And something so small as what my mother said was like, oh, you don't tell people about that. But then how do you come across something like this? And, you know, you do either want to hide it, but it's good to, you know, bring that out because you don't want it to happen again. You know, you want to either hide it or do you get that out there so people can know more about it so that it doesn't happen again? He was a very charismatic.
You don't want to put it out there because you want people judging you or your family or your siblings or children in the family.
But
Because
that's the thing.
the public
Yeah.
you can't trust the public is not forgiving, and they everybody doesn't matter who you are in the family. They'll look at you and like, oh wow. So
Right.
That's right. That's right. And I, you know, that night I could see some members of the family cared and others just wanted their apple pie. And so, and they wanted to move on. But it slammed me across the chest like a 2x4. And that was the night that my journey began.
Yeah.
And that's...
how did you start your journey? I know you forgot that little information, but how did you start? Like with genealogy, or did you, you know?
Well, when my grandfather died, he was I never really liked my grandfather. He was it's hard to say, but that's the truth. He was a man that would go fishing on the weekends, and he knew that I loved to fish, and he never asked me to go with him. Never. And that always burned a hole in me. And so when he died, I never even attended his funeral. And but I'll never forget this days after my father, who was a very stoic, quiet man who flew airplanes for the Navy, of carriers in Vietnam, all that stuff. And I'll never forget him walking up into my garage. I was in the garage working on my next change of fishing reel, and he came in with 2 old tackle boxes, and he said, your grandfather wanted you to have these. Here they are. And they were actually World War II ammunition boxes. You remember, Anthony, those? And
big steel boxes with the top on the open.
That's right. That's very, that's true. And so, you know, I said, well, great. So the old man finally decided to include me in his fishing. And, so I put them over in the corner. Didn't bother to open them. And then months later, I was out in the garage one day, and I decided to look to see what was really in them. And the one had a false bottom in it that had some H.H. Holmes material in it.
Oh, wow.
And I wrote about that in the book and described going through that material. And much of it was very, very different than all the material that had been written by the authors that wanted to call themselves experts of H.H. Holmes, and they really had it quite wrong. Yeah. And so I started investigating myself on what had really happened, what was really going on at the murder castle, what was really, and then lo and behold, as while this investigation was going on, I started being approached by people who had material they wanted to share, information, secrets. And one of them was a group of gentlemen from Philadelphia who were convinced that he was also Jack the Ripper. And they told me how they'd come to this conclusion. And I still had some friends in the federal government in forensic science and investigating crimes. And I approached them and asked if they could help me with this to see if this was legitimate or not. And we took those writings, those correspondence that my grandfather had passed on to me, and we took it to a group of fellows that their living was, they work for a group called Cedar Fox, who compare handwritings for the FBI, for the post office, for the IRS, for all the federal government agencies. And they were excited to take a look and compare those handwritings with the infamous, really, Dear Boss letter, the Jack the Ripper, dear, here's the one that ends, yours truly, Jack the Ripper. And they came back with a conclusion that came up, I think you'll like this, Maureen, almost 97% similar. And I'm an amazing number. Yeah.
That's yeah. Wow.
So, and then you've probably taken a look at, but if you look in social media, if you go back into some of the material that I've been involved with, I actually got approached by the people at TED Talk to give a talk up in Vancouver, Canada, about my theory that he was Jack the Ripper. And then it just started taking off from there, and you guys have seen it. I got asked to be on American Ripper by History Channel, that eight-part miniseries, which was a lot of fun, a lot of fun to be involved with.
That was some show. I mean, the stuff that you, how you went back and forth to England and to prove. I mean, the show. When the show first came out, because I mean, I like learning about serial killers and maybe how they go about, why they do it. And of course, Jack the Ripper was always on the thing. And then Jack the Ripper might have been American.
Right from the very start.
I did see something recently about Jack the Ripper. It was a recent show, and they're doing the letters. They're looking at the letters that went to the police and everything, and they had this guy that actually said that the way he wrote it and the words he used back then, the English wasn't using the same words as the Americans. A lot of the words that were written on that letter would have been American writing it, not Englishman, because the way it was written, and they didn't use those words back then in England. It was like slang words from America. So I thought that was so that proves he was, well, it doesn't prove exactly, but it still links him to America.
Yeah.
So when you came out with the show, I'm like, how's he going to link him to H.H. Holmes? And then it's like, wow, how you went back there and actually he was around that time in England. So it was really something how,
the very title, Dear Boss, is American.
Yeah.
And we had some English linguists that stated that on the show. But when we first started American Ripper, I was probably the only one within 100 miles that had any thought whatsoever that this could be true. They were doing it for television. They were doing it for some ratings and making some money. But it was interesting to watch the deeper and deeper we got into the series, especially Amaryllis. The more and more the crew and she started believing, wait, this could very well be possible. And now a lot of people think that, and it's almost when you get someone come up with a list of suspects now, it's not unusual to see Holmes's name thrown right in there now, where before it would have been unheard of. So it was we had a great, and history treated me like a king on the series. They were like you said, flying us back and forth from England and Chicago and Philadelphia and New York, and having a lot of fun. And then they spent a lot of money trying to see if they could prove this true and how far we could get with it. And it was a bucket list item on my life. It was something that I wanted to do, got to do it, and it turned out very well.
That's something. So
the most intriguing thing to me, I'm sorry, Anthony, when it's like right from the beginning, when talking about him as a little boy, I think he was from New Hampshire, if I'm correct, when starting out just talking about how his cousins were both drowned, and then it started talking about how in the same town so many people went missing, and then they were talking about how many children were missing, and it was like, how did this not be known? I mean, just in a small town that I live in, if you had 4 or 5 kids go missing and then 2 of your cousins were drowned, you'd immediately have people, setting up warning bells. My husband's a police officer, and he would immediately be on the case. You know what I mean? He would immediately start throwing out suspects. And then the kid's name was changed. How many times? 20, 30, all different names? Like, that wouldn't have somebody questioning any of it?
Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, Holmes even taught 6th grade school in his little town of Gilmington, New Hampshire. Think about that. And you know what? And
before he changed his name?
What?
Is that before he changed his name to Holmes?
Oh yeah, he had over 41 different aliases.
All different names, like George, Herman, and then last names too.
Yeah. And then he just kind of grew fond of the one, and that kind of stuck there at the end. And what most people don't realize about my my great grandfather was that he went to the University of Michigan. He went to medical school. He graduated a PhD in medicine. And brilliant man. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to get more into his existence, just to find out why someone that intelligent, why someone that creative, why someone that full of possibility would have gone that way, right? And I don't think society's looked enough at him for some of those questions that might have incredible answers that could help all of us one day. And but when he graduated from the University of Michigan, he was traveling around the country trying to find out where he wanted to be, and then ended up in Chicago. He was fascinated with the World's Fair coming there. They didn't call it the World's Fair back then. It was the I always get this wrong, but it was over 2 million people ended up going, in the 1894, I think it was.
It was so easy to hide something that way, because you're bumping into people over and over again. And women were constantly going to the fair with their girlfriends and to see, the most amazing sights, and easily just bump somebody off.
Well, and whenever I go on shows, wherever I go conferences or debates, it's always about how many he actually murdered. And to tell you the truth, I don't know. I don't think anyone does. What we do know is that the World's Fair, Maureen, then had an unusual amount of young ladies that just went missing, and the Chicago police will admit this in their files. And if you dig in deep enough, if you investigate hard enough, they have a relationship or an association with Holmes and the murder castle. And I'm just, after all these years investigating that terrible man, I've come to realize those coincidences are always more than that. He always had something to do with it. And he used that education he obtained at the University of Michigan to become an expert in forensics, and probably the most talented criminal as far as eliminating human remains after a homicide that ever lived. And so now when people want to argue that that you can't prove how many, I just agree with them, Anthony, and tell them, you're right. We can't prove any of that. All I know is this man knew what he was doing, and he even had a business selling skeletons.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think that's why he got into it? Because he gets these victims and he gets the skeletons or body parts or just the bodies, and they can sell it. Because I know back then you got these medical schools and you had the underground that used to bring the dead bodies to them and sell it so they could have cadavers.
Well, he was doing it before that, though, because
Well, I think he might continue because maybe get more victims because he was making some kind of money or profit off the dead bodies, off the skeletons, off the body parts. Because I mean, the bodies in England with Jack the Ripper, they were cutting out female organs, different parts, the body, and I mean, and they said they could sell. They actually sell those body parts. Certain body parts are worth more than others. So,
well, Todd and Carmel want to know what was the going price for a skeleton back then.
I have no idea. I really don't. I know. I looked into how much money he was making falsifying life insurance policies. He'd get named as a beneficiary by one of these young ladies, get her to take out a life insurance policy, and then she'd show up passed away, and he'd collect that money. And sometimes, in the 1890s, it was as much as $10,000, which was a fortune. I would imagine if you compared it to money now, you're looking at $200,000, $300,000. And I'm not an expert. I'm not an economist. I'm just giving you my best guess. And so he started doing that. He started selling the skeletons. I'll tell you guys an interesting sidebar. I was selling my book at a conference in Iowa once, and signing books for people. And had a gentleman come up, well dressed, looked like a doctor, and turned out to be a doctor at the Iowa Medical School there. And told us that he'd been watching, my travails, and that he and his fellow physicians had decided that they were concerned that the skeleton they had there at the school that they used to train future doctors regarding the bones, that they had received that. They had bought it from H.H. Holmes in the 1890s.
Oh, wow.
And they were concerned that the poor skeleton was not just simply a cadaver, but had been someone that he had murdered. Yeah, so they got rid of it from the and he wanted to tell me that that's what they were going to do.
I mean, there's no more DNA left on that.
No.
Yeah. Especially when he did it, where he used to put them in those vats of acid, more or less, and and take the skin off them, and it was interesting, and how he got away with this such a long time.
Chicago was a rough place, in the 19th century, and when you dig into what was going on there at that time, it's easy to see how someone like that, who was capable of taking advantage of the somewhat wild west atmosphere, got away with a lot of that, and he took advantage of it.
That's a shame that all these victims happened, all these people, and then he actually had a building built just for murders.
Well, and it was a motel. It was a hotel, that he would rent to some of the visitors to the fair when they needed a place to stay. And
a pharmacy, right?
Pharmacy, yeah. And he had his offices there and his living accommodations upstairs, and then down below the basement was where, Anthony, you were talking about. He had a furnace, he had the vats, he had the acid, he had all those things, and it was quite a terrible place. You just wouldn't assume that would happen in America, would you?
You don't assume it happen anywhere, really.
Yeah.
But it does. That's an unfortunate thing, But I remember when they said they went in. That's how they realized he was such a mass murderer. But they went in, and in the furnaces, they were finding bones, human bones, and body parts. And then they're walking around the hotel, and each room had a different thing with gas or different ways to murder people.
Everyone was a torture chamber of its own.
Yeah,
it's true. It's true. If any of you, or few, or any of your viewers are interested, he wrote, while he was in prison awaiting execution, he wrote his memoirs. And this brilliant man, and it's he was evil but brilliant. I'm not ashamed to bring that up, but and the memoirs he wrote. If you're fascinated with true crime, if you're fascinated with how the mind of a killer works, take my advice and read his works, and you'll start to look at many things in life differently after that. I promise you.
Yeah, I got to check that out. Somebody posted that your book is on the auto.
I think Jenny said it. It's audiobook.
Yeah.
I sold my book out. I don't have any more, and I'm considering. I self-published and did it myself, and I think we sold 10,000 copies or something. But it's I'm considering printing out a few more just in case. When I go to places, I'm asked to attend things. I'm always asked by someone if I can give them a signed copy. There's that fascination with who I am signing the book when they read it, I guess. And so I'm going to print out a few more, and so that I'll have some. But
I mean,
you can pick it up ebook, I think, and it's very cheap on ebook. You can get it on Amazon, but in Amazon, some the resales people are telling me it's $200-300. So I don't.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. Especially now that we're getting very close to. We've got some amazing new material connecting him with real evidence to Jack the Ripper, which I think is it's going to be huge here pretty soon.
New series.
Well, that's two huge breaks in two major cases that have never been solved yet, and it's the same person. That's huge.
It's on Audible.
Yeah. Carrie Hopper says hello, by the way.
Oh, hi. How are you?
She said it's a fabulous book. So I have a question, and I also have a question from one of our favorites, Jenny. She says, I wonder, does Jeff's family consult on any portrayals of Holmes in movies or TV, for example, American Horror Story?
My family doesn't talk to me about this thing.
So do you consult?
No.
Okay.
I'm the only one. The other ones set it aside and moved on with their life. And I think many of them are bothered by what I've done. And we're all a little bit different. Like I told you when we started, this became an obsession for me.
Yeah.
Plus, I was interested in the world knowing the truth. And there's many, many books written about Holmes by, authors that just pretty much took the material that they put between the covers from newspaper articles, which weren't well researched back in the 19th century.
Yeah.
And the more we looked into them, my investigating team and I, the more we found out that much of it was just plain wrong.
Yeah.
And we wanted to see if we could come up with the truth. It hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy at all. And it's, when you talk about investigating something from over 130 years ago now, without Anthony, as you said, without DNA, without fingerprints, without blood
forensic science or anything. Yeah.
No, just using, newspaper articles, the photographs we could find. I've got one investigator, Lorelei Blondell, who's the greatest investigator I've ever seen in my life. And she'll go dig through the National Archives and come up with something new every time that just amazes the world. Yeah. So that's we're still looking at all that good stuff. And like I said, we've got some new things that just came up about his connection with Jack that I think is going to shock the world.
Yeah. I mean, when you went over to London, how did you go about, did the police will help, they would, because I know sometimes when you go to locations to do any kind of investigations, and they might not want people to know what happened, or so did they help you? Did they, will they show you around or show you where the places were, or they were right with you investigating and stuff like that, or
not investigating, but they're very helpful. They were fascinated with History Channel. History Channel is a big entity, and we had a production group called Magilla, who this was their first attempt into recreating true crime.
Okay.
They had done before. Maureen, you might have seen them before. They were on cooking shows. They were on remodeling houses, things like this. And History was giving these guys their first big shot. And you could see how far they took it. I thought some of I don't know if your viewers remember, but on American Ripper, their recreations and the actor they used to play Holmes and the Ripper was very, very good. And
yeah.
While we were in, to answer your question, Anthony, while we were in London, we'd had a long day in production, and the group was down planning for the next day's shoots, and I was up in the lobby of the hotel, having a cocktail, and I was approached by two well-dressed young men, well-groomed, and they introduced themselves as Scotland Yard.
Oh.
And they just wanted me to know that they were watching our production, keeping an eye on it, whatever that meant. I never found out. But yeah. Well, that's kind of like FBI coming up to you, same.
Yeah.
And they said that they wanted me to know that they thought my theory was all wrong, that Jack wasn't H.H. Holmes. H.H. Holmes wasn't Jack, but that they did agree with me that there was a copycat. There had never been one killer and 5 victims. And they wanted me to know that they completely agreed with that part of the theory. So, that was, and then they turned around and walked off, and that was the last I ever saw them.
Well, there was a theory that there was a Polish butcher, and that was Jack the Ripper. Do you think they were trying to throw you off of the scent so it wouldn't lead back to them?
I don't know. I to tell you the truth, when I started digging into Ripperology, Maureen, it's a Wikipedia of information. There's just so much of it, and so many books, so many theories, so many suspects, and everything you could possibly think of is involved in ripperology. So I pretty much just stayed with the connection with Holmes and how he could possibly be the one.
Do you believe that a serial killer is born, or are they made?
Ooh, there was a yes, there was a for some of your viewers may have watched the other night. There was a show on News Nation hosted by Ashley Banley, and it was about what you were talking about, and also why is it that our society, the shows, the books, the documentaries, the speeches, why are we so fascinated with serial killers? Why are we so obsessed with that knowledge? And she brought it up. I didn't. I'm not bringing it up now, but she brought it up, especially women. And that's when you look at the television shows about serial killers, there's 60-70% are watched by women. And she came up with some great answers. And as far as being born with it, my father and I talked about this for obvious reasons. We knew we were different. All right. We knew we were different. Well, we weren't born killers, but we looked at certain things that a lot of people take for granted differently. And now that we know where we came from, our origins, we both think it has something to do with those genes and that evil thing. And you know what, though? We don't look at that badly. We look at it as, Maureen, we look at it as something that we were born with, we were forced to deal with, and we both made good choices about it. And I think that's something to be proud of.
I agree.
I mean, with serial killers, I think some might be born with that streak down their back, but I think some are created into it, from wherever childhood they're brought up into. Like, you see like some of the serial killers, and they're like, oh, they're abused as a kid by their mother, by their uncle, by somebody, and they go out. And I think the reason women are more intent to watch these shows is because a lot of the victims are women on these shows, serial killers. So I think that's why women seem to watch it more than men. Because
I'd be interested to hear if any of your viewers have theories about that, because it was a fascinating show to watch. If you get a chance, and they'll replay it. But if it comes up, take my word for it. It was great to watch.
Yeah. What was the name of the show? Because I'll probably go watch it after this.
It was News Nation, and it was by Ashley Banleigh, Banleigh. She's the host. She's on every night. Okay. And it was very good. And they got into some of the pictures. They got into those John Wayne Gacy pictures where he's dressed up as a clown. God, that was an evil man. If there was one more evil than Holmes, that was it. And the stories they were telling about him and in Chicago, and it was scary. And there's some of those monsters, I don't think, like regular people, like the three of us, we would not do that evil stuff anyway. But we'd also consider what were the repercussions if we did it and got caught. Right. And I don't think Holmes cared. And he would just figure out a way to get away with it. And I've long believed, when I was a kid, 17, we had our high school arranged a basketball game. I was on the team there against against the inmates at San Quentin. And that little trip and that vision of what goes on there when you get caught doing something like that, I've long believed maybe every human being should see what becomes of you, the real story inside those places. Because there was never a time when was ever tempted to do anything that could get me anywhere near being put in that place.
Mm-hmm. I remember when we were watching the show, you actually had his body resumed.
Exhumed, yeah.
And yeah, that's what I said, Maureen. Everybody makes fun of the way I talk. I'm from Queens. I'm from the city. I'm from talk. Yeah. You know? So,
just helping out a little bit.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
But when you had a resume, what do you think he had his body encased in cement? He thinks somebody might have stole his body too?
Well, it wasn't just encased in cement.
Would it be ironic somebody steal his body and sell it to science?
Well, when we exhumed him,
that's what I said.
Okay, that's I. You know what? I've got the headphones on. I just missed it. And
I like Jeff already.
Yeah, when I went to the. I'm not supposed to do this because you sign when you do these television shows, you've got to sign contracts to oblivion, and about what you say on a show like this about what they and I talked about and all these things. It's top secret. So they were convinced that we might find something in that grave that was further evidence of Jack the Ripper. And you know what? There was a good chance of it. And I think we actually did, to tell you the truth. But I'd long believed, having, studied the subject intensely, that it had never been Holmes that was executed. There was a substitute in his place. He had arranged, this was the greatest criminal con man that ever lived, in my opinion. And so when history agreed to fund the exhumation, we went to the judge there, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, who agreed to let us do it if we had the scientists from the University of Pennsylvania involved, the anthropologists, archaeologists, and that every single one of my family members had to consent. So that was quite a journey on my part.
That was probably harder than getting the state of Pennsylvania.
It was very difficult, but they agreed. They agreed to give them credit. So, Anthony, hold on. Always affects me talking.
Doesn't affect me, so.
when every major newspaper was there at the execution, every major newspaper was there at the burial. They all wrote, New York Times, Chicago Tribune, The Sun, all of them. The Pennsylvania, I can't remember the final on the Philadelphia paper, but they all wrote their own articles. They all had their own artist depictions. They all had photographs and about that thing, that burial. And it started bothering me, and that so many were different. These reporters that were there at the same time, same place, same day, all talked about something different. And having practiced law, I knew that was a big clue usually for something not having been explained correctly. So I tried to say that gently. And as we started digging, and the scientists took over, they did a great job. The UPenn scientists, I still know them both. We came across that there were two grave sites next to each other. The first one The first one had a wood pine box, not the concrete you mentioned, Anthony,
Uh-huh.
with a clay-like material in it. Empty, no body. We moved over into the second grave site, dug a little deeper, and then we came to your concrete block that the newspapers talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And when we opened that concrete up, there was a gentleman from the 1890s, the most terrible odor I've ever had and smelt in my entire life. It was horrible. It's one of the, I'm always kind of embarrassed about this, but the director said, Jeff, get down in there with the scientists. You got to start digging with them. I said, I'm not going down there. So I turn around and look, and Amaryllis jumps right down there. She's digging away. That tough little CIA chick. And she was great. And so we broke open the concrete, and there he was with his hat, his bowler hat, still mustache, 120 some years later, his suit on still. And so we pulled that skeleton up, and we took it to the University of Pennsylvania, to their laboratories there, where the anthropologists do all their Native American Indian work and dinosaur bones, all that stuff. And there was Holmes, or who they thought was Holmes. And the judge demanded that my father and I give DNA to be compared with what we found, exhumed.
Okay.
The scientists did CRT scans of the neck that the prison had reported was broken on the hanging.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were measuring its height, the physique, all those things. And the DNA didn't come back right. I'll never forget the day I was there when we took the DNA sample from the skeleton. Is this a subject that's okay for you guys and your viewers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
I know you guys are more paranormal, which I can get into
this
too.
is
I believe in the paranormal too.
kind of horror, so we can.
I mean, yeah, this is. I mean, I think our audience is enjoying it right now. So.
They love it. They're really loving it.
Well, if they get tired of it, just kick me. And my dad and my DNA were perfect matches. The History Channel did a great job arranging with King's College in London, the one many of the crime investigating agencies use for DNA comparisons on homicides, and they told us exactly where they wanted the DNA taken from, because he had teeth and the whole thing, and
So he was preserved because of the cement.
I think so. And and they had us roll the skull over, and there's a pocket of osseous bone in the back of all of our skulls. Okay. And then we used a diamond drill bit, and they told us exactly how they wanted it done, and to take the sample and send it to them, and they'd have it back compared with mine and my father's within 3 to 5 days. No sweat. They said, no problem, it's coming right back. So the TV production went on. Everybody was pretty much assuming what was going to come back. Mm-hmm. Well, 3 months later, they couldn't get it to match. Yeah, they couldn't get it to match. And they started using excuses like, well, it had degraded, the concrete had somehow torn it down. And when you see pictures of the skeleton and the skull, it's perfect. It's in great shape. Yeah. And they had King's College. Well, we asked them that. Do you want the mustache for your DNA? No, we don't need it. We'll just the pocket at the back of the bone, at the skull. So anyway,
they would do the hair. The hair follicles usually are very clear. They go back.
I was thinking the same thing, Anthony. I was also thinking, why don't they take one of the molars out and send the molar to them? They could probably break the molar open, and there's probably material inside. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a in any way knowledgeable about that stuff. So, and then they did CRT scan of the neck vertebra, because when he had been hung, supposedly hung, the prison physicians there had noted on the official death report that the axis and atlas vertebra had separated, i.e. broke. And if you watch American Ripper, you and your viewers, you'll see one of the scientists admits there was no cause of death to the vertebra, the one we had. And they admitted that the skeleton was a little short to be Holmes, and that the physique was a little off to be Holmes. But they'd all made up their mind, from all the newspaper articles, from all the history books, from the 20 different nonfiction books written about Holmes and his execution and burial, that's who we were digging up. And so we've got some new material now that we're revealing. I have my own podcast called Something Wicked, and on YouTube, and we're going to be revealing some new material about why we're going to prove to the world that it wasn't Holmes, that there was a substitute there, and Holmes had walked away from Moyamensing prison. And my family had long believed that he had moved out to California and lived the rest of his life out west. And
wasn't there murders after? And I know they were saying there might have been copycat, but there was a lot like what happened before. Wasn't there stuff happening afterwards?
Well, many of the books, you're right. Many of the books wrote about a Holmes curse.
Okay.
That anyone involved in his arrest, his imprisonment, the trial that he had been upset with, any witness that he had been upset with, any of the prison officials, many ended up either suffering terrible misfortune or being killed. And so some of the books wrote about this Holmes curse, which, pretty tough to sell, that idea. But when you start proving that it wasn't him that was executed, that it was all a con that he set up and pulled off, maybe the greatest con in criminal justice history. Great is the terrible word to use, most amazing. And that he had gone back and visited these people afterwards.
Yeah.
Do you think that he did all of this because he thought he was more intelligent than law enforcement?
Yeah.
It sounds like all of it, everything he's done.
Yeah.
Well, most serial killers always think they're always ahead of a lot of serial killers. I think they're ahead of the police force and the news, and they always think they're smarter than everybody else. So there's a lot of serial killers out there, right? That think they're much smarter than the average person, or even the police and stuff.
So if he got away from this, then he could have even been another serial killer that we never knew about.
That's right. Taking another name. Well, and there was no one out there even curious about him having possibly not been executed. Didn't even come up. And so the Holmes story, and obviously I'm tied to it personally, but the Holmes story, you'll be amazed at how much new material is always coming up. And now that people know that I'm the center of that world of Holmes knowledge, I get notified on social media of new suspicions or material or even evidence about something they've been holding back for a long time, and now they share it with me and pass it on, and it's happens a lot now, and I'm having a lot of fun with it, as you might imagine.
Yeah. Well, you said some of your family, they think they went to California. Did you do any research in California for around that time and see if there's any killings or, something similar to what was going on.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a serial killer, you're not going to stop because that's what you are. You're not going to just stop one day after he murdered all these people. He made a castle just to murder people. So if he moves to California, he's going to take his hobbies with him.
Well, but there was no one suspicious of him. And if he had done that, and maybe he learned a couple lessons about what he did wrong getting caught, with he was arrested regarding the murders of a family, the 3 children and their father. That he had been caught over as he had made statements. He was in a St. Louis, Missouri jail that he had made silly statements to one of his co-inmates and who had passed it on in order to get out. And the police let him go if he revealed the information. And that's what they used to track him down. It's a fascinating story to read up on. And that's another, Anthony, you might be fascinated, Maureen too, the trial transcript, his murder. And you can imagine that just, I can read that 10 times, but he actually sets aside his 2 lawyers, Holmes, and conducts his own defense.
Oh.
Never having gone to law school, never having practiced law, never having operated at trial. And I still get comments back then from practicing lawyers saying how amazed they were, how good he was in his cross-examination, and just the back and forth, him and the judge over items of evidence. And it's that's another thing you should read, Anthony, from this. Oh, he was one of a kind.
Yeah.
So you definitely would think he was more intelligent.
Yeah, that's where he comes in like a narcissist, pretty much. He thinks even smarter than the law system, than lawyers and everything. And he's ahead of everybody. So,
well, but when your 2 lawyers are maybe refusing to state the lies you need them to state at court under oath in order to pull off the defense you're looking for. He was a pathological liar. He could lie about when his birthday was.
Well, that's why they think even the journal that he wrote or the book that he wrote, even some of that, he bragged about how many murders he created. Yeah. That may not even be correct.
It's not. There was actually some in that list he put together that they found out were still living. And but that's pretty much anything he said. You've got to take with a grain of salt to see what could be the monetary benefit he's getting from this. Now that benefit he wrote, the Hearst Corporation paid him $7,500 for that in 1896, and I'm convinced he needed that for the con. He needed that to pull that off. And
so that's when he paid off the person that replaced him for to be buried, or
Well, I don't know how that was done. I don't know whether that was a murder or that was a cadaver. I don't know. I'm pretty convinced that first coffin we found, that pine box, that was where they brought the body out to that second grave and then flopped it over, poured the concrete on it, with Holmes probably watching from a tree behind the set. But it's an amazing story. I'm always amazed still how come that at one point Tom Cruise owned the rights to the story, and then Scorsese and DiCaprio bought it from Cruise, and then they kind of just let it sit, and they haven't done anything with it now for 6-7 years. And I'm always surprised because God, the Devil in the White City, what a Hollywood movie that could be, huh?
It would be. Yeah. It really would be. So you said the first grave that they went into was filled with clay.
The first I'm sorry again.
So would that just be to weigh it so it felt like there was a body in it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There is the Chicago Sun did an artist depiction of them lowering that pine box in the grave, and the top's off, and there's a mound inside that's made to look like a human body in that clay. And when we opened it up, Maureen, it had flattened. It was just the clay.
But
And
what
there's,
did you even get out of that?
you know, he was
Money.
he was worried that that there were grave robbers that could sell his body, maybe, and if they ever dug it up and found out it wasn't him, well, then the manhunt of all time was going to be on.
But the other wasn't him either.
No, and I still haven't figured all that out. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and if you and Anthony come up with something really grabby that works, I'd love to hear it.
Maybe he thought that, okay, so this isn't him, so let's move to the other one next to it.
Well, the other one next to it was what all the newspapers wrote about. That was the one they used the concrete in.
So maybe he thought that they would think that that was him, but if it's not him, maybe we'll go to the next one.
Good. Okay. I'll consider that. See how that might work. But it's I never got any help with History Channel over using that second grave site. They were pretty much the team was convinced that this was Holmes. There had never been any skullduggery. There had never been a substitution. We hadn't found anything about Jack the Ripper tying it to Holmes. And the judge said, okay, put it back, rebury it, and move on. And that's where we left it. But I've never been convinced.
So what was the percentage of the match between the skeletal remains in the concrete and yours?
What do you mean?
When they tested the DNA in the concrete grave against yours, what was the percentage? Was it close?
I don't know, but there is the two scientists, okay? Before the show ended, they did an interview with Rolling Stone magazine, and they admitted, and you can pull this up if you want to dig it up, but they admitted that they'd given up on DNA, that they were moving on, that it was dental records they were going to prove this with.
Okay.
And the DNA had degraded, and they were not going to work with DNA anymore, which to me sounds like it wasn't a match. But we could not say that on the show and have the show stop on that 8th episode. And the television people, I think, wanted to get out. They'd had enough, and they wanted to move on to something different, which I can't blame them. We went way over budget on that exhumation because there were two graves, and it was Anthony, you'll like this, as we were digging the graves on each side, the walls started collapsing, and we had to call in engineers to shore it up with this really fancy stuff. And they were spending a lot of money on this thing, much more than they had budgeted. And I think they'd had enough.
Yeah. I mean, I know with the tools and everything, the scalpels and everything, and how they were like with when you went back to England. I mean, I still go back and forth to when you're going back and forth, with Jack the Ripper, because I'm still concerned. It's like I'm still fascinated. Is he really Jack the Ripper?
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what you're coming up with. That's going to be wild. I mean,
he is. The handwriting matches.
I believe it.
The handwriting. I'm convinced. The handwriting matches 97%. The FBI right now, Maureen, ask your husband. They have the technology. They have the talent, the ability to take that handwriting out right now and tell the world whether Holmes wrote Dear Boss. response. They can do it.
Absolutely do. I know they
You know
do.
what? And I've asked them to help me with it, and I don't get any response. And what most people don't realize is the FBI actually wrote a full report on the FBI on Jack the Ripper. You know,
Really?
back in 1960. Yeah, it's a dynamite file to read. I've read it two or three times, and I know Scotland Yard, Maureen, could run that handwriting comparison through the equipment they have now. They could tell us right now. And you don't know how many people, Anthony, I come up to me now and say, Jeff, the world doesn't want to know the truth about that. There's too many movies. There's too many books. There's too much money made on Jack the Ripper.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's still a fascination out there also. So I think more people like to know more than, the people that wrote books and everything. Oh, okay. They got fans and everything. But I think there's a large percentage that's still curious. Who's Jack the Ripper? And, we know J. Jones, but everybody's still concerned about that, I
mean, there's not a concern because people think that they're still out there. Obviously, they're not. But
it's a fascination.
It's just curiosity. And, it could lead to studies on other people who are still out there. But I think what was interesting was that the Scotland Yard guys came to you, and what they did say sounded like a threat. And what leads me to believe that is I really think that they don't want any connection to their country. They wanted it to stay in the United States. They don't want to be known for what went on with them. So they don't want to be connected to one, let alone two, or the same person.
Mm-hmm. And then you've also got to understand there's absolutely been billions of dollars made on Jack the Ripper, one way or the other. Mm-hmm. And I think they're looking forward to more billions about Jack the Ripper.
It could be more billions if it's the same person. Yeah. Take it, guys.
There'll be new books and new theories and new TV shows. So I think the billions that they made already, they're gonna make more billions on.
So. Maybe they want it to continue to be a question.
In the show, they're still in the post office in Chicago has still part of the basement was the original murder castle. So I mean, they wouldn't let you in there to do anything, but you did some stuff on the property.
We went in there, and it's. We just the other day on my YouTube show on Something Wicked, the fellow that went down there in the basement originally with me that first time when at 63rd and Wallace in Chicago. Very interesting. The post office employees all believe that their post office is haunted. Mm-hmm. And it's there's no doubt in their mind whatsoever. They don't go down in the basement. They never did.
They don't.
And when we went to them, it was barricaded. And the superintendent allowed us to go into the basement when he found out who I was. And I think he was intrigued with the story as well. Mm-hmm. And so when we went down the stairway into the basement, when the post office was built, it wasn't built directly over the top of the murder castle. The murder castle had been torn down. The federal government had bought the land. It was right next to the rail line there, so it was very handy for the post office. And they had built it, but there's an overlap. And we had measured it out up on top and then figured out we were going to go down and give it a try. So my friend Kim, he's an actor in Hollywood. He's won an Emmy. Mm-hmm. He talked the superintendent into allowing us to go down into the basement that first time. And I think you'll probably have other experiences like this from your other guests, maybe. When I went down those steps, Maureen, I was, I didn't believe in the paranormal, the supernatural, the spirit world at all.
Well, I was going to say, here's the crossover, folks. So
When I came back, when I came back up 2 hours later, my life had changed. My life had completely changed, and now I'm a complete believer. I know what I felt down there. I know what I heard down there, and there's no doubt in my mind that I met my great-great-grandfather down in that basement.
I was approached to his show, paranormal show, that one of the places they were going to do was that basement. Of course, you know how sometimes productions and shows don't get off the ground. So yeah, I was like, oh, I want to do that so bad to go down as a paranormal investigator. That's like, you know, somewhere I definitely want to go. It's like a bucket list type of item.
I still think that's the place that the paranormal is going to be proven one day, in that basement at 63rd and Wallace. I do, and it almost there's something about me going down there that motivates whatever entity or energy is down there, and it did, and it's actually when I came back up. I don't know if you've both ever heard this, some of your reviewers might have, but I was when I came back up the stairs that day, I had a mental disorder, and when I went to the physicians to find out what was going on, they diagnosed me as epileptic, and I had never been before going down those steps, and those seizures that I'd have, I was. See, and I almost, it's very difficult talking about this subject. And I finally just told myself just to go ahead and do it. When I want to prove that he's Jack the Ripper with true crime evidence, right? And prove it absolutely. When you start getting into that, I also believe in ghosts. It kind of tends to dilute your theories on the other subject. Well, you know, you guys both know that. And but when I came back up those stairs that day, my life changed, and those seizures, when I'd have them afterwards, Anthony, that's who would visit me. That's the voice that would come talk to me, and I'd go to my neurologist and tell them, this is what's happening. They said, no, you've developed epilepsy. Those are normal seizures. You had a grand mal, even a severe one. And there's nothing unusual about that. That's quite normal. And I said, wait. The voice is telling me things that I've didn't know before. And then when my team and I go investigate that fact, we find out it's true that I didn't know. What's going on? What's going on with that stuff? We started finding out about other murders.
So your senses are being heightened because of this, and when your senses are heightened, your sixth sense gets heightened as well.
Exactly the way to put it. Well done. Thank you. I actually used that a long time ago.
That happened to me also.
Okay. Well then, and I've long had a theory, Maureen, that many people who believe in an entity or an energy or things like that. And I've never seen a face come up when it's talking to me. It's the voice. But I've long believed that they are also somewhat epileptic, maybe. And that seizure is where you go into that, what do you call it, a realm, or you go into another level, or a dimension. Thank you very much. Well, I should have come talk to you a long time ago, both of you. Yeah. And that dimension is why I have to take medicine every day of my life now. Yeah.
It sounds like you have some sort of attachment. Something's attaching to you.
He doesn't have an attachment.
Well, I mean, he's getting epileptic fits. You're epileptic now. So whatever it's attached to you might be that was them in life. Maybe they had those type of fits. So now it attached to you. So you might be having some of the effects that whatever attached you had in life.
So he wore a bowler hat and a half cape.
Yes. Looked very much like Jack the Ripper. All those gear. He didn't have the cape that you see in the movies, but
he's wearing a half cape.
Yeah.
Only to about here.
Well, and when I'm convinced that one day, if we get the right kind of team to go back down into that basement, the right kind of, I don't want it to be a Hollywood thing. I want it to be real. I want it to be science, because I would probably have to go down there without being on the medication to see if I could stimulate another one of those deep grand mal seizures. But one of those, I ended up in the hospital in the emergency room, and the first thing I hear, Maureen, is the physician saying, "We have him back. We have him back." That's what I hear.
Wow.
And so it's not a simple thing. But if we're talking about proving something that's important, I'm always shocked how many people believe that just don't admit it. To like people like you and Anthony on your show, that there's a lot of people that believe in the supernatural, in the spirit world. They do.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it since I was 3 years old. So
okay,
I've been investigating since I was 13. So I've been doing it over 40 somewhat years. But growing up 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, before paranormal got really popular.
Yeah.
Nobody could talk about it. Nobody. Now it become a thing on TV after 2004 and stuff. Now you got people coming. I don't believe. But
it's
later on, they pull you over the side and have the best stories.
Ah.
Yeah. So, So what you're going through, I think, is, I mean, I just lost the train of thought. I just had a senior moment. I don't know where I am. I had a senior moment.
Well, tell me this. You both are experienced in this. Tell me this. Why is it always so associated with evil?
It's not.
No.
I really truly believe that it's super rare. I think that it's that they're stuck here and they're just ornery because they're stuck because they've done something that wasn't so. And maybe they're still angry. Maybe they're still angry and they're still wanting to do the same things that they did do because they were terrible people. But I know for a fact that they found apothecary bottles in that basement that did belong to him. And I think that he's maybe still stuck. He's still stuck doing the same types of things. I know for a fact that there are still things that belong to him on that property and it hasn't been cleared.
Oh yeah. I don't know.
The reason I think with the evil part is because of certain religions, and they don't want us to believe there's a spirit world. They want you to feel that you pass and you go to wherever religion you are, heaven, hell, whatever, and whatever religion you are, wherever people go, and if you could prove there's a spirit of ghosts or something on this earth, you might go against their readings in their book or whatever book they believe in. It maybe the Bible, maybe the Quran, or whatever it might be.
Torah.
Yeah, what they believe. I feel that has to do with that, more like a religion type of thing. But the evil part also to this day is because of TV. If you see anything about ghosts on TV,
makes sense.
It's demons.
Movies, TV shows, anything, they refer to them and they make them like they're bad. They're attacking you. The best ghost shows out there is attacking. They show the ghosts attacking people. It's not like they're helping them or anything, or they're just. I mean, most of the places we go, I know investigations. I've been to some of the worst places, and I feel that spirit wants you to be, if they're like being not, more than like a negative type of spirit. The reason they're being negative because they want to push you away and hey, leave me alone. Just leave me alone. I always use the excuses like if you're sitting home on your couch watching TV and somebody just walks in and sits down on your couch, say, hey, how you doing? You're like, who are you? Get out of here. You get aggressive with that person because you're trying to protect your territory. So that's why I think negative entities are. I don't think they're demons. I think they're negative because they just want to be left alone.
They're stuck too long.
Yeah, they just want to be by themselves or whatever, be left alone. Because you're actually infringing on their territory. So that's why I think it's negative, and that's why I think it's evil because they might have a negative, but I don't think it's evil. I think it's just they want to be left alone and pushed away.
Well, this one didn't. This one, I write about it in Bloodstains. I write about it. He actually wanted me to kill my friend down there with me. That was where I was going to fill his shoes.
I was going to say that
my first, and he could arrange it to where it would look like an accident. I write about it in the book.
He's body jumping.
And people think it was fiction that I was writing, and it wasn't. It was what happened to me that day down in the post office basement at 63rd and Wallace, where the murder castle was once located. And I still believe that one day, if we ever get it planned properly with the right kind of team, with the right kind of science, not just TV stuff, that it might be where the paranormal's actually proven one day.
Yeah.
Well, we got a friend, I know Maureen, my friend Ron Yacovetti and Lourdes Gonzalez, they got this thing. They actually feed static, white noise through the computer, and they're getting words. And everywhere we go, we're getting words, and it's actually being intelligent, saying our names and giving out everything. So
It's amazing.
If you ever get that down there, you might get some real, something to listen to, and you might even hear him.
I would love to come out and help you. I think that this would be an amazing opportunity.
Staticom, I think, would be great for that.
That sounds like it might be a good idea.
You know what I mean? If we could get into that basement, we could get that all set up. It's a new piece of tool
that could come out and help you. I think that we have a lot of people who we work with, and solely for the purpose of scientific evidence.
That's what we believe in. Yes. So
Carrie said, sorry, in this situation, some souls just don't become evil free will. Holmes chose this life. And I truly believe that could be the case. And I do think that he might be body hopping you. I think that he might be using you as a vessel, as a conduit for his work, because I think that he has the capability of doing that, which is rare.
Do you think Holmes had like a multi-personality type of thing? That, he might have been good in one area with the doctoring, and then his personality turned into H.H. Holmes, where become a serial killer?
Don't know.
Because maybe why I'm thinking that is because maybe one of his personalities did have epilepsy.
I've never seen a diagnosis or anything like that. I've never seen a medical file on him, but it's entirely possible.
I actually think that he's body jumping him, and it's creating that seizure-like feeling.
Think that it? That's interesting. It's very interesting. Yeah, but in any which way, I'd say, with the, if he's jumping your body, or whatever he had in him maybe could be coming out on you, any kind of ailment, anything. During those times, do you feel? I know if you're going through a seizure, but do you feel anything else with your body? Pains on your elbow or whatever it might be, or no? It's just that.
I woke up once in the middle of a massive car accident on a highway with cars upside down and my truck in the ditch across the road, cops, fierce police officers just thinking I was DUI, and I had caused the accident. There's no doubt about it, and that's I still don't know what happened during it, and that's when I gave up driving, and because I was very lucky I didn't kill someone that day.
Oh wow!
So those are what my seizures are like. And then, except for when I get in one of these dialogues with the voice, and so it's yeah.
So do you actually have like a full body seizure, or do you go like clonic, tonic, like atonic? What kind of?
I wake up and I have no idea what happened.
Was your body moving?
I would imagine.
Like a seizure, or because there are seizures where you just blank out and you don't even blink.
Yeah. I wake up with big bruises on my shoulder and things.
So was there anyone ever around you when you had a seizure?
Don't know.
So maybe they're saying that you had a seizure, but it was more like a blank out, or you're just staring. And it's actually that they did body jump you.
My neurologist said it's completely normal what I'm having. It's medically normal. They say I just don't agree, and I think it's more than that. But so that's. The medicine they gave me works. It does.
And it's an anti-seizure med.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Well, we're trying to look at it as more of a paranormal or side effect of something, because you received that after coming out of that basement.
Yeah.
So, which could have been body jumping.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, something that's still down there. Maybe it's not there. Maybe just following you around or something.
Oh, never anything happened like it did there that day.
But you were on that ground where he was.
Yeah, I could tell you. That's you guys will both like this. When we dug the body up, exhumed him, and took him to the laboratory at the University of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And the scientists cleaned the skeleton, and they were trying to identify him as H.H. Holmes, all those things. I remember they were enjoying their shoot, and they were up having lunch, and I snuck away down to the laboratory by myself, and the skeleton was laying on the gurney there on the table, and it had been cleaned. So I have always had in that mind, Anthony, that Hamlet scene where he talks to the skeleton.
Oh yeah,
the Shakespeare. And I grabbed the skeleton in my hand and rolled him up in my face, and the two big sockets are there staring me back and forth. And I asked him, why would you have been like that when you had so much talent, so much ability, so much intelligence? And this was when we just dug him up, and I was still 50-50 on whether this was Holmes or not, okay? And I'll never forget, nothing, no feeling in my hand, no dialogue, no voice, no feel, no eyes, nothing. And at that moment, and I know both of you will understand where I'm going with this, I knew it wasn't him. I knew it right then, holding it in my hand. It was somebody else.
See, you are attached. You definitely do have a connection to the other side, because you would hear something, or if it was him, he would be talking to you. So now you're getting someone talking to you, right?
Maybe.
That's wow. Yeah, I mean, you might have abilities. You have abilities too, and not to the day of that basement. Now they started.
A traumatic experience, an accident, someone's death, any of those things can start an awakening for you. That was your awakening.
Yeah. You know, not everybody starts like me at 3 years old. You know,
No,
That's good.
for me.
yeah. It's like, you know, maybe later on in life it happened for you. But
Do
that's,
do either of you have any condition or disorder, any epileptic condition?
well, I'm blind
Yes.
in one eye.
I have what they work on brain seizures, and I do take an epileptic medication. But that's my dog. I'm sorry. It sounds like someone trying to kick the door down. It slowed down my abilities, and then I had a traumatic thing happen. And I was working in an office that had mold and heavy metal, and I wound up with poisoning of each. And I wound up blacking out, just like how you said it happened to you. And when I came to, all of my autonomic system was failing, and then my organs started to fail, but all my senses heightened. And then things were wide open, and I could hear and see and smell and everything.
Mhm.
And everything and everyone was talking to me, and it was just full blast. And that was about 8 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
I don't have anything like that.
But I've had ability since I was a little kid too. So it was just on a lower level.
Mm.
It just exploded then.
Mhm.
Then I had to find a way to kind of dampen it because people were walking everywhere in my house.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with your new abilities there, do you see anything else besides when you do the epileptics, when you get, you know, your
Like seizures or
yeah, do you see anything when you don't have seizures, or anything happens, or you hear things? I know you hear voices after it, but
No, during. There's some that I recall having the voices with. Others are just oblivious, and then I can always tell when one's coming. I lose all track.
does it sound like things are getting farther away?
Oh, like you're out in the universe with no stars, just that black thing you fall into without any borders or boundaries, or you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
It's impossible to describe. Authors have tried for hundreds of years and they never got it right, as far as I'm concerned. But it was that, and then, but that one time down in the basement when he wanted me to kill my friend down there with me, that was the tightest it ever was.
wow, yeah, because he's the strongest, and he's the first one too. So he probably whatever just jumped you, and it's like, let's do this. You know, let me get my urge out again. You know?
Why do you think you were so obsessed with this also? Do you think that there was something specific about this that made you so obsessed?
Yeah, because the rest of your family's not as much as you are.
Yeah.
Do you think it could have been a past life for you?
Yeah. I've been different my whole life. I've been different. I mean, that's why I was a good practicing attorney. That's when I found something I needed to come to the truth with. I would be obsessed with it, and that's just valuable for a lawyer. Valuable. And I just and then the Jack the Ripper thing. I mean, to be the one that solves Jack the Ripper's. I wouldn't mind being that. I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't mind being that at all. I wouldn't mind. And so it's and then to prove that an even bigger story, he walked away.
Yeah.
And it wasn't him they executed that day and moved out to California. And that kind of story is American history.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to prove that true if it happened. I don't want it to have happened if it didn't, but it's so anyway. That's good. That's good. Well, I tell you, you both. You know what? I'm getting a little tired here now. We've been going for an hour and a half here.
Well, you did 8 episodes and you did 2 hours with us, an hour and a half with us, and we tired you out.
Yeah.
We did something right then.
Yeah. No, I'm getting a little tired. That's but I've also gone deeper this with you here tonight than I have with any other podcast, and I've done a lot of them. So you have me there. You have me there.
Thank you for sharing. I mean,
we were so happy to have you.
If we ever get down to that basement,
we'll go.
We'll definitely let you know.
I think if we ever got the chance and got permission, which might not be easy, I'd have to go try to get permission again from the federal government and the post office. And I think if we did it right and used the proper methods to record it this time, that we might change human life.
Okay, this thing Staticom it's a changer in the. I mean, these people, they just got ready to England to do some stuff over there at a Paracon and stuff. So it's brand new. So if you're interested, we could set something up and see what we can get.
I'm interested. I am. It's obviously something that's made the big part of my life right now.
This would be awesome to get you involved with that and just listen and maybe get some answers for you.
I'd have to, if we ever did something like that, it would be off the medicine. We'd have to have someone there that could take care of me in case it ever got serious again.
You cannot go there.
I don't want to wake up to that "we got him back again" thing ever again in my life. That was
I've been there.
That was terrifying. That was terrifying.
Yes, it is.
I don't want to be murdered down that basement.
That's right. Well, then you have to keep an eye on me. Yeah.
We'll bring medical, and I'll hold Anthony's hand, and then I'll talk you through it too.
All right. And then when we're all done, we'll go get a big piece of Chicago pizza
and beer.
You get Chicago pizza. It's not as good as the Brooklyn pizza, but we try it.
Okay.
Oh, Anthony.
Hey,
don't fight the
I've had that. New Yorkers tell me that all the time. That Chicago pizza is good, but it's not New York pizza.
Yeah, we gotta try it. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to keep you any longer if you're tired. Is there anywhere you're going to be going, or anything you want to, your book or anything?
Maureen knows how to get a hold of me. If you guys come up with a plan or an idea.
I'm talking about anything you're coming up that you want to advertise. For
any new books or shows or anything.
Well, our YouTube Something Wicked is doing really well.
I love that.
Something Wicked. Last week it was with my friend Kim, the one who went down with me into the basement, and we got him to explain what he felt that day. See, I've written about it in a book. He has never said, and he was incredible last week. So if you ever get the chance, pull up that. It was our 3rd episode of Something Wicked with Kim Estes. My co-host's name is Lorelei Blondell. She's a Chicago lady, brilliant, and we did a good job on it, and it was very successful. She said we had 1,000 viewers, I think, which for the 3rd episode is pretty good, I guess.
1,000 viewers. That's
and
nice.
What kind of topics do you discuss?
Well, we're doing Holmes right now. We're doing, we're trying to get the whole. I want to get Holmes for posterity recorded, and then we're going to branch off into other things because I've had enough of Holmes, to tell you the truth. I really have, but I want to get it down on paper or on video, and then move off into X-Files stuff.
Ooh.
We love the X-Files, and that's kind of
that's a big part of our audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we'd like to do. And it's and then back into true crime once in a while, and those things, because we're both good at true crime, and it's we're having fun. And I like it that it doesn't. Lorelei's putting the whole thing together. She's doing most of the hard work.
So you just show up? And be brilliant.
Well, we talk every day. We get ready for the week, but it hasn't cost me any money. I mean, she's put it together, and we're starting to get successful. We're starting to get our
Great.
Facebook pages are growing because of it, and
Mhm.
and we'll see. You know how, those things aren't easy.
It's
You
not
got,
easy.
and she told me it would take at least 6 months for it to succeed if it's going to,
Mhm.
and so we're going to give it a shot.
That's
So
awesome.
where do you have your podcast? Is it on YouTube? Is it on
YouTube.
Okay, great. I'm gonna join. I want to watch.
Oh, I would love to. I would love for you to, and that she'll be glad that I've got a new viewer.
And my husband will definitely watch this.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I want you to tell me what you think of what Kim said last week.
yeah.
Okay, I'll have to
look in the back.
He was the one that went down into the basement, and then one day had to find out that the ghost was trying to get me to kill him. What he thought of that. So it was fun. It was an interesting show.
It's definitely going to be amazing because I watched I don't know what haunting show it was, but I know for a fact that the apothecary bottles were being thrown at people,
I never heard this before.
And there was an attachment to someone, and they had to go back and put the bottle back that they took. So they took the bottle with them, and they weren't supposed to take the bottle, and they were his apothecary bottles.
Wow. I've never heard that.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Fascinating.
Yeah. So I can't wait to watch this show that you have.
Let me know what you think.
I will be sitting there with my earbuds in all night catching up.
Okay.
We'll be in the chat. So I'm definitely going to check it out. And Maureen, put that on in the chat. I'll chat.
I did.
You did? Okay. That's
Thank
great.
you very much. Thank you very much. Next week, we're going to start with the exhumation. We're going to start with we're going to get into the DNA, the CRT scans. We have what they used to identify the body as Holmes was the quote unquote dental records, which in reality was a dental impression that Holmes had his Chicago partner, a Chicago dentist, come out to Philadelphia, physically examine him, and then put these dental impressions on in his JAMA report that he submitted to JAMA. And when you look at the dental impressions and you see the teeth we dug up, it's a perfect match. But when you look at the and which sold everyone there except me. And when you look at the dental impressions, every dentist that sees it says that can't be. You've used the upper mold on both jaws, and the lower jaw has to have the space. It's a horseshoe shape for the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't do it the way they did it there on anything but a cadaver. So now we're getting, Anthony, into the substitution of the body,
yes,
and different things, and when those impressions were taken. So we're having a lot of fun with that, and it may be that just is that breaks the camel's back, that impossibility that those impressions they used to identify the body are even possible, that it was Holmes that day in his prison cell, and I'm just really excited about it.
I mean, to me, just when you said that, he's such a brilliant person that he might have did that, figuring that one day he might get caught, and had somebody had those teeth, the impressions done, then took the body and put it on ice somewhere, and kept it, or maybe just because when you guys pulled it up, the body was still good, so maybe it was on ice all that time.
Well, the body wasn't good, but it was better than you'd think it would be after 120 something years.
Yeah,
what I mean.
What I'm saying.
Yeah, but remember, you've got no DNA back then. You've got no blood type. You got no fingerprints. You had teeth, and Holmes used teeth to defraud life insurance policies. That's what he used. And now we have these teeth, and we have dentists saying, "Whoa, you can't. That can't be.
Yeah.
That would have been a cadaver, and they'd have had to have made room for the tongue.
Uh-huh.
Because you can't press it down. You can't press it down without that horseshoe shape. Anyway, so we're into that right now. Lorelei and I, every day we're discussing it and working on which expert we want to bring on the show. And we're just she's got an old friend that retired from the FBI, and we're trying to get him to come on, and we're really excited about that.
That's awesome.
That would be cool.
I'm gonna have to watch the show. You got what nights are you on?
Thursday nights.
Thursday nights.
8:00 Central.
8:00 Central.
So you missed it because of us?
No, we this week we needed more than 1 week to prepare,
Oh, okay.
so we put it off a week.
Well, thank you for being with
Got
us.
lucky then.
Yeah, we did.
I didn't think I could go 2 hours, but we're getting that
Trust
time.
me, we can talk for days.
You're so interesting and so full of knowledge and everything that's going on with H.H. Holmes, and
Well, thank you.
it's like a million. I still got like a million questions. It's like I could keep you on all night. It's like
There's a lot to learn.
Well, I hope your viewers enjoyed it too. So
They did. They have been talking constantly about what a great guest, what a great show. This is so interesting. And they thought that this didn't fit in with what we normally talk about, but there really is, because there is a crossover with the paranormal, and it is like horror. There's a little gruesome to it, and they loved you.
Well, I can tell you, when I went down those steps into the post office that day, I thought this was all malarkey. And when I came back up, 2 hours later, my life had changed, and I believe all of it now. And I'm just hoping that we get to be the one and that place gets to be the spot where scientifically proven. And what would happen to the existence if that were done? I just was imagining that the other day. How would you teach your children about it? What would you do with that?
There's
very difficult. Yeah.
There's so much. I always taught my son from when he was a little kid that, if you have a desk, you learn in science that a desk is made of matter. And if you move it, that matter is left behind. So if it's an inanimate object and that has matter left behind, think of mommy and her big, crazy personality. And if I die and I were to be moved, what do you think that party's going to be like in that spot afterwards? And he said, crazy. And I said, so if I'm no longer there, what do you think is going to happen? And he said, there's going to be a crazy ghost. And he still believes that. And he's 28 now. So
I believe that too. Definitely be a crazy ghost if you're left.
Going to be a crazy ghost behind.
You're definitely a crazy ghost.
And he has abilities too. So he explains to his kids the same thing.
Okay.
So
that's science.
Well, let's put this up on the wall. Let's put this up on the Anthony, you said the white screen. And
The
whiteboard. The whiteboard. Yep. Let's mark it up and let's plan ahead, okay?
Let's do it.
All right.
Thank you, Jeff, so much.
Thank you very much. I had a great time and enjoyed being your guest tonight. And check out Something Wicked. And I'd appreciate, Maureen and Anthony, if you'd let me know what you thought of Kim last week.
Absolutely. If you need anything, Jeff, you let us know.
Kim won an Emmy in Hollywood.
Get out.
I was there. I was there when he won his Emmy. Yeah.
I definitely will be watching that for sure tonight. I'll soak it all up in one night. I'm a binger.
All right. How do I say goodnight with this machine now?
I will shut you down so you don't have to do it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you very much.
We'll get you involved. If we ever get down that basement, we'll definitely let you know.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay? Good night, Jeff. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
What an amazing, fantastic guest.
Maureen, he's still in the background. He's in green screen.
Well, then good. Then he heard me. I hope everybody enjoyed this. This was so unbelievable.
This was, I really, I just like so many things I still want to ask, and
I know, right?
it's unbelievable that he was on, and I'm so happy. Carrie's the one to hook me up with his name and everything. She's in the audience. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie. We love you. That
She
was
hooked me up with that.
unbelievable. I'm so I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, I hope the audience liked it.
They loved him. They loved him. I mean, and I know, guys, I know that this was not really like within our niche, but like I said, it is a little gruesome, a little horror, a little paranormal at the end, because there are paranormal stories about that basement, because it was the apothecary that he ran. Thank you, honey. But there are stories about the bottles being thrown by him. People took the bottles, they became haunted. Oh, thank you. I don't know who's saying that. The Facebook user that says all the podcasts I've watched, this was the best by far. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah,
maybe we'll get like a Grammy for this. I don't know. What do they give for podcast awards?
But yeah, he was, a knowledge of all this. And if he does come out another show,
I would love that.
Definitely going to start watching. Well, we're going to have a problem watching his podcast. We have to watch it afterwards, because we can't watch it live because it's on during our show.
Yeah. But I love watching other people's podcasts. I love being on podcasts. I think that they're really interesting. I love learning. A Webby Award. Thank you, Carrie. You can see how educated I am in this stuff.
Webbies.
The Webby Award.
Yeah.
Watch Carrie's podcast also. She has a great
Haunted of history. Oh wow. Carrie, help me here. I'm screwing it up.
Haunted history?
No,
history of
a haunting.
History of a haunting. That's right.
Yes.
She has a great one too.
Yeah, that's a good one. And the reason I knew about Jeff is because I watched the show and Jeff was on it. It was like, whoa. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's got to be him. He said, I want to go into the basement with the piano box. That would be super interesting too. History of a haunting podcast. Thank you for that.
Sorry, Carrie. I've been on the show. I still screw it up.
I really think that, it'd be really cool if we did Staticon, if we did dowsing rods, if we did psychic mediumship, and Frankie. Hi, Frankie, if you're watching, and if Jenny's still there. We have like a great group of people that we work with and are super serious about the science behind things. She said, I love you, Anthony. Dr. DR60 will get evidence. I'll get my bat ears ready for you too.
Yeah. DR60. That's definitely him then.
Yep. He'll get his evidence.
Yeah. I mean, we get Staticom down there with him.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I would love to do that. I've always been so interested in this.
Staticom, yeah. But it was a good show, and he was a great guest.
He was amazing. He was a sweetheart too.
Yeah, he's such a nice guy, and he talked about things he never talked about on any other podcast.
You heard it first, right here.
Yeah, that was amazing. That he opened up to us like that. With the his seizures and everything. So
yeah,
that's interesting.
The basement is in Chicago, where the house of, it wasn't a house, it was like a couple stories building that H.H. Holmes built specifically to make it a torture, like several torture chambers.
They call the Murder Castle. If you look up Murder Castle, Google Murder Castle, H.H. Holmes comes up with that. Yeah, it's in a post office basement. The actual castle, the Murder Castle, was actually burned down after he was arrested. Somebody burned it down. So that was long gone. But part of the basement, when they actually later on, and they built a post office in the same spot, and I guess some of the basement was destroyed because of whatever was found down there. Because they actually found bones, and they found he used to get the bodies and incinerate them in the basement.
Yeah,
so
there was
bones and stuff like that, or he would put them in a barrel of acid and take the skin off them too.
Yeah,
so he used to sell the skull.
The first floor of his building was like an apothecary, which would have been like a pharmacy, and he sold pharmaceuticals, but he also sold candies, which would lure young women in, and he would put a sign in the window that would say rooms for rent, and it was during the Chicago Fair in the White City. Well, that's what they called Chicago. It was done beautifully.
Everything was the World's Fair.
Yes.
In the world.
And everything was pure white. It was supposedly like the most beautiful city at the time, and they had gondola rides. They had all these really beautiful things, and it lured all these young women in because they thought it was so beautiful. They wanted to go and see it, so they would go with their girlfriends, and these girls would go missing. He had the most charismatic personality, supposedly, and he would ask each of them to marry him. So he became engaged, and they would write to their mothers, and they would say that they were betrothed to be married, and he would kind of charm them for a little bit, and they would bring in some money because of like a dowry type of thing, and he would be sweet to them, and then he would have them in a room, and then each room was a different type of torture chamber. One would have gas, one would have spikes, and they would kind of like get closer and closer. The walls would get closer and closer. But the basement had apothecary bottles left. It had, acid where he would dump the bodies. It's the most crazy story. You can watch. There's a special called The White City, The Devil of the White City. There's so much on this, and people don't even realize it unless they really knew who he was. So there's a lot that you can see about this. It's really an interesting story. And then they started to put together that Jack the Ripper left around the same time to leave London to come here, and then that ended, and then H.H. Holmes picked up. Then they started a background check.
Yeah, what happened was H.H. Holmes went to London, and at the same time in London, Jack the Ripper murders were happening. Then Jack the Ripper disappeared. Right the same time H.H. Holmes came back to the United States. He went to Chicago, and that's when he started building his the murder castle in Chicago. And then the World's Fair, the first World's Fair ever, was done there. Matter of fact, that's why they call the lights, the White City. Because at the time, the light bulb was just being developed.
And everything was built white for the fair.
Yeah. What they did was that was the first time they actually used a light bulb anywhere in pretty much the world, and they used thousands and thousands that lit up the fair. So all these people were coming in. Single women were coming in at the time together, and they were coming from other countries because they figured they would come here and meet somebody to marry.
And boy, did they.
I mean, back then, they came here, or they came from other places, because back then it was a different era. They needed a husband or whatever. I know.
They couldn't own property.
That's the way it was back then.
They couldn't own property if they were single.
They couldn't own property. If they were a woman without a child or whatever, at a certain age, they were spinsters and everything else. And so they came to this country to get, see if they could meet somebody. But at the time, H.H. Holmes on the prowl, and he would get these young women to, like Maureen said, he knew how to talk.
And if it was so crowded because of this fair, there were so many people here for this fair that you could literally kill someone in the street and no one would notice. It was that busy.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of murders going on then too, but they noticed a large amount of women disappearing. but not everyone was announced that would disappear, because remember, they came from another country here.
It wasn't a time of passports. It wasn't a time of, anything. So people didn't know.
Plus, he would offer rooms for them to stay, and some of them he used to let them stay there for free. So you go to this woman and she has no money, and she's like, "Okay, yeah, I'll stay here. Oh, that's great." And then to go in a room and there's a tube hanging out of the wall where he used to gas the people. Back then, remember, they also had back then the old the tubes that used to come out for the gas for lights. So they used to have light gas back then. But so when a person come in and see a tube coming out of the wall, they didn't think anything, because they would think, "Oh, that's for the gas. That's for this, that." So when they used to gas them, they used to die. And there was other torches he had, but the most popular one was gas. And it was like, I think it was like 4 or 5 floors or something. It was it was a hotel.
It was on like an angle. It was like on an angled street where it was like a Y.
Yeah, it was on a corner of the street. So when people used to go in, and he used to kill them. Then where he was smart, he had these shafts, and at different parts of on each floor of the hotel, where he could throw the body down so nobody would see a body. So it goes straight down into the basement.
And then reuse that room all over again.
Yeah, and because there's no blood or anything, he didn't murder nobody. And he used to go down the basement. Then down the basement, he used to prepare them, and that's where he used to burn them.
And they had the blueprints. He had the blueprints of the building, and each room was marked like gas room, spike room, and he had the whole thing labeled and with the chutes and everything. It was disgusting. It was.
Mm-hmm. He knew he really. And what he used to do is when they were building it, he would get crews in to build some of the building, then fire them. Then another crew would come in and do another part of the building.
So no one went on.
So nobody knew exactly why certain rooms had certain things, because people would, and then people like his assistant later on disappeared, and people that actually helped him with the killing disappeared. He covered all his tracks.
Yep.
He really did.
Yeah,
so
it's terrible.
It was, I mean.
He even he went out to another state, I think it was Indiana, and he killed a set of kids. And the mother was looking for them, and he had them write letters. Yeah,
well, that was, I think, his partner's kids. It was two girls and a boy.
I thought it was a girl and a boy. I mean, it might have been 3.
It was 3 kids, and he actually moved. He went to another place. Was it Indiana? I'm not sure exactly. I thought it was more east. Mm-hmm. But he took them, and he actually killed the girls. And then, because they left the kids with him to take care of the kids, because they couldn't, whatever reason. And he killed the girls, and then they killed the boy later on in a different location. He didn't know. He killed everybody. He had a couple of wives.
Oh, several engagements, several wives.
And they all disappeared, and that's the kids is what he got. I think it was the boy.
That's where he got caught.
They found the boy, and he was the last one with the boy, so that's how he got caught. And then they realized he killed these kids, and then they went to they went to his the murder castle, and they were the cops were walking around, and they were saying, why is this in the wall? They were curious then they went down the basement, and there was an incinerator down there, cremation type thing. And they opened it up, and there was human bodies in there. There was human bodies, and also there was drums with of certain types of acids and fluids, and that disintegrate skin. So that's how he got caught, because of his body parts. There was still bones in the body, and that's how he got caught, and he went to jail.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting that he might not have been executed. He might have actually went to California, and because what happened is he did have the money, because that paper gave him so much money that he could have paid off a guard, or he could have paid off a couple people. It was $1,200 in the 1800s.
Well, when
Todd
and Carmela asked how much a skeleton was, I looked it up, and I responded that it was $300, which back in the 1890s would have been $8,000.
So it's very lucrative for him.
Yes.
That's why I think he kept on. I don't think he killed all the time for the enjoyment. Maybe he did kill for enjoyment, but I think he killed for money. He killed these people, take their skeleton and sell it.
I still believe that was just a bonus to him. I do think that he was really sick.
Well, I think he enjoyed it too, but maybe, like I said, maybe he did that for money. I mean, how did he build that building? You know, and look how many aliases he had. You know, this man was some sort of.
He was taking skeletons in, so he was getting $8,000 a skeleton. You don't think he could have built that building?
Of course.
So that's where
$8,000 he could build half that building. I mean, 4 skeletons, he built the whole thing. You know, because remember, it was plus he owned a cement factory on the water, and that's another way they think he got rid of bodies too, because he could have just encapsulate them in cement and threw them in the lake.
You don't think that that's not irony, that he had cement poured on top of him?
Mm-hmm. So he was a rich man. He had other businesses, you know, as a doctor, but he did have cement places. He had other kinds of businesses also throughout the Chicago and other locations.
He probably even paid off the guards watching him before he was murdered, or not murdered, but you know, before he was hung.
Yeah, he could have paid off anybody.
Mm-hmm.
They could have brought a cadaver in to, you know, replace him. I mean, and I think they had the mole of the people, and they said it was from cadaver. Maybe it was from when he said that Jeff said that they resumed the first grave. It was a wooden box, and then it was filled in with mud. Maybe that's where that's what he said. He thinks it came from that grave and put it out in the grave. Maybe that's the grave they had the mole from, and then when they took the person out there and threw him in the cement, figuring one day maybe they will dig him up. You know, the mole was already made. And look, it was him. You know,
he was actually hung in 1896. At that time, people were poor. You know, he could have paid off anybody to help him, and if times were tough, people would have taken any of that money. He could have offered them whatever.
Sure. I mean, he got $1,200. He could throw somebody $100. I mean, back then, you remember, people were making a couple of dollars a week. You know, at the end of the year, they might have made, if they were lucky, $100.
Now, here's the interesting part. Those people are not left behind to tell their story. However, what they could do is find out who the guards were that were guarding him at the time. Did they buy a house immediately after?
Mm-hmm.
Did they pay off their debt? Did they buy a vehicle? What did they purchase after? If it was something that was really expensive, that would have been them.
That's true. You should look into the people that were guarding him, you know, and see what they were doing, and you know how they got money afterwards, if they got any money.
Why would someone die in his place? It's not that someone would die in his place. It would be that the guards would replace the person.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they hated the person that was in this next cell over because he was a pain in the ass. We have no idea. It could just be that the guards replaced them because they needed the money to take care of their 8 children. A lot of people had a lot of kids back then. They couldn't afford it. It's not that someone would want to die in the place of.
But then again, if you are sick and you have a family and you're going to die anyway, somebody offers you money and said, yeah, sure, I'm going to die anyway. Or a person that's that poor that wants to take care of his family and you're going to get enough money to take care of your family, you might say, yeah, I'll take my life and my family will be taken care of.
Or maybe they're going to be hung anyway, so they decide to take that date.
My brother just turned in too. Hey, Gerard.
Hey, Gerard.
Yeah, we got Tim still left and Gerard.
I don't know who's there. I can't see.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's Tim and Gerard. My brothers came in. But, just Gerard, you just missed Jeff. Jeff Mudgett just left. But when it comes to money back then,
you never know what people will do.
Remember, when people back then, it was poverty. You know, it was really. I mean, the people that didn't have money didn't have money.
Well, I was looking to see if it was even into like the years of the Great Depression, but it was before that. But still, people were poor. People were immigrating here. They didn't have a lot of money.
That's another thing. Immigrants came in, and they had no money. So it's people could have did, just that desperate to give up their life or whatever. Like I said, but like he said, they took the grave, the first grave they brought up, because he had 2 graves, 2 sites. The first grave they put up was a wooden box full of
clay.
All right. Like I said, maybe there was a body in there that they did the mold on way before, and then the person died, or maybe you had the person killed and put him in that spot. All right.
Well, it sounded like there wasn't anyone in that box. It was just clay.
Yeah. But he said they assumed it. But what if the body was already buried there, and just to save the body for when he actually gets executed, they take that grave, they take that body and put it into the new grave because they have the teeth mold, the mold. Yeah. So they have that molded, and they said it was done with a cadaver. That could have been a cadaver, and they just moved it over. Because if he was exhumed one day, they could, it was really him. And he was a very smart man.
Yeah. It's sad that someone would use their intelligence for that instead of something else.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Look at Ted Bundy, though. He was the same way.
Well, I think this, if anything, I would put H.H. Holmes in a different, because I still think a lot of his murders were because maybe he enjoyed it, but he was making money off it. All these other serial killers were just killing. Yeah. They were killing. H.H. Holmes, and even with the Jack the Ripper thing, they were saying, because I watched some of I watched the American Ripper.
He was making money too.
Yeah. He could have did that back because his body parts missing on the people in England.
Women. He was taking out their uterus.
Yeah, and they could sell that to the schools because they would preserve it and use it for them to learn. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So he was stealing parts from the women and selling it. If anybody would do something like that, it would be him, H.H. Holmes.
It was the same.
I think it's the same person. I really do. I can't. There's going to be people saying no, and I've seen shows where they blame some other people.
Well, they blamed that Polish butcher, And the reason why they blamed him was because of the way that he was cutting things, and they were saying that he was selling them for stew meat.
Why would you cut a uterus off a stew meat?
Because it would look like something from an animal.
I mean, they could cut up a body and they would never know the difference. You know? I don't know, but
because back in that time, it was like we were talking about, everyone was like, they were dirt poor. So they would buy something that was cheaper than cow meat.
Mm-hmm.
Stew.
Yeah, that reminds me of Sweeney Todd.
Yes.
With the meat pies.
Meat pies.
Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, either way, it is disgusting.
Yeah. I mean,
we don't know it, and we don't know what could be happening to people. And that's, like I said in the beginning, this is, to bring it out instead of hiding it. It's so that we can learn from it so that it doesn't keep happening.
Yeah. But I tell you right now, there's always going to be some sick bastard out there that will still do it. You could try to prevent people from killing, but serial killing. But that's, like I said, the way the history of it. I mean, if anybody just watched that show that he was on, and the way they did all the evidence and everything was very interesting. America Ripper. I seen it. What was it on? At Hulu the other night. I was watching it. So if you got anybody that wants to check it out.
It's a really. I'm gonna actually put that in the comments too.
Mm-hmm. So it was a good show tonight.
This was a great show. Anthony Robert is from Tony's group.
Okay.
How about the doctor's riot?
That's something different. My brother works in an area downtown, and he's starting to get some, paranormal investigators. So what do? You get a new location. You're going to walk around doing a little investigation when you're by yourself, and he found out that the location he was down, he's getting some good EVPs, and there was he just found out that I'm not guessing the 1800s sometime or whatever. There was a riot, a doctor's riot down there for some reason.
Where?
It was downtown.
In New York?
Yeah, Manhattan. When I say downtown, the doctor's riot. Yeah. I'm not sure why it was a riot. It was what was called the doctor's riots.
Huh.
He just found this out like last night. So the guy looked it up. He said, look it up. I guess he did. But yeah, it's interesting that.
Would that have been like when the 5 points were still going on, or?
No, I think it's after 5 points. Because the 5 points pretty much was where the towers were.
Yeah.
That was like pretty much where they all came together. The 5 points, which I find interesting.
Oh, it was the doctor's riot of 1788.
Okay, so it's even before. So it might be around 5 points time.
Where the illegal procurement of corpses from the graves of the recently deceased caused a mass expression of discontent from poorer New Yorkers that was directed primarily at physicians and medical students.
Okay. So maybe that's where they put the cadaver type thing happened.
So that was even going on in Philadelphia during the American Revolutionary War. They were throwing the bodies into this park. And they had people who were guarding that park, but they would have people with cloaks that would come into this park and just pay for the body so they could take it back to the schools and kind of do what Jack the Ripper was doing or H.H. Holmes, and they would pay for whole bodies or an arm, and they would saw it off right there in the park. And there's a building that stands right there in Philadelphia, and that was the prison. And you can see, like, while I was on this ghost walk, you could actually see the heads of people in this building on the first floor. It was really weird.
Yeah. I mean, remember back then, it was very lucrative. Lucrative.
Lucrative.
That's what I said.
Hey.
To they would rob graves, or get somebody that was about to die, or just kill people. And I still think H.H. Holmes was kind of like that type of person too. You know, to make money. You know, grave rob. No, he wasn't so much a grave rob. He was more above that. You know.
Well, it's interesting because the anatomy riot happened in 1788. So they passed what was called the Anatomy Act of 1789. So recognizing the need for anatomy material for legitimate medical education, the New York legislature passed a 1789 Anatomy Act that made grave robbing illegal, but allowed judges to add dissection after execution to the sentence of murderers, arsonists, and burglars. That's really interesting.
Wow. Yeah, my brother came up with good history there.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thanks, Gerard.
His building's on. He said it on the exact spot.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting how, you know, history is like.
It kind of unfolds on each other.
Yeah, I mean, here we are in New York with stuff, and this is going back in, you know, with H.H. Holmes, and it's interesting how everything, how people didn't care about other people. They were just.
It's still the same. It hasn't changed.
I mean, they killed people in the street and then sold their bodies to these medical schools. And the medical schools is like, oh, okay, here.
People wouldn't kill others in the streets and sell their bodies now if they could get away with it?
Well, they do. I mean, they steal people's body parts. They steal your freaking liver, your kidneys and stuff like that. You know, the places my brother put down there, 199 Church Street in New York.
Okay.
But
is that like a more suburban area, or is that more like a city area?
Suburban and city.
You're forgetting. I don't know what New York is like where you grew up.
Well, Manhattan's nothing in suburbs. Like Queens, they consider us more the suburbs. You know, but Manhattan is really not really suburb. There are houses and stuff there, but it's still part of the city. That is over. Nah, he was telling me it's not too far from City Hall in Manhattan. You know, and it's not that far from the what do you call it? The towers, the tower.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so still used to saying the towers, but yeah, not too far from World Trade Center.
Ooh, it's 5 to 10. Bobby has his show.
Oh, yeah. We'll just wrap it. Okay. I just want to tell everybody thank you for tonight.
Thanks everyone for being here. We enjoyed our show. It was very interesting. And we had a great guest. Thank you for coming out as usual on Thursday nights from 7:30 until whatever time it runs till these days. We had a great time with all of you, and we learned a lot. This was very intellectual, and we had a lot of knowledge. So thanks for coming out as usual. This is Dimensions of the Supernatural with Maureen Grudzinski and Anthony Simonelli.
I want to put the ending on too.
Okay.
I just want to tell you, be safe out there. You want to look for ghosts, not be a ghost. I just want to say, ciao. Forget about it. Hey.
Hey. How you doing?
Good night, everybody.
Good night.